Hey everyone, it's Alexis. I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be walking you through the stencil and stamp tool using some of our new Chapter 3 layered stencils that we just released. I'm going to, in particular, be using this one called Flower Patch, which is one that I designed, and I'm really excited that it's out and available for you all. I wanted a layered stencil that had an all-over pattern that you could really use all year round, and so today I'm going to walk you through one, how to use layered stencils, but two, how just by changing colors on a pattern stencil, how you can create seasonal versatility for its use all year round. Now, it's no secret that the stencil and stamp tool is one of my favorite tools that we've come out with in recent years at Sizzix, and that is because I love how you can take this and put it on your desk and you can create such simple, beautiful stencil projects in a matter of mere minutes. But then you also have the stamping feature with the platform, which honestly just makes your day-to-day life easier when you're having to do large-scale stamps or you want to do a sentiment that you need to stamp a couple times in a row. This is my go-to tool now, and it's something that is always within easy access for me. So there was, of course, a no-brainer in me developing a layered stencil that kind of correlates with the Chapter 2 releases I did, where we had the In the Meadow, we had the All in Bloom die, we had the floral vessels. I wanted a stencil that I could then put all of those kind of makes on top or use in unison with them. So I wanted to do a very particular type of stencil. So typically with a layered stencil, your first one is your background piece, and that is the one that kind of gives you your base color. And you always, with layered stencils, and ours particular, you want to work from a light color to a dark color. If you start with dark, you're not going to be able to put lighter tones on top of it. So you always want to start with layer 1 and start with your lighter color. Now with this particular stencil, and I wanted to be able for you to use the flowers separately, so I intentionally worked with Jen Ogborn, who helped me kind of figure out how to do this, to create a layered stencil, but with two separate sections. If that makes any sense, I'll explain. So I wanted the leaves to be their own stencils and the flowers to be their own stencils. So layers 1 and 2 are your leaf components. You get layer 1, which is your shadow, your background, and then you get layer 2, which brings in your detail. So you can kind of see on here that that lighter shade of green is my background, the lightest color, and then I've gone in with a darker green to create the shadow effects on top. Now, if I didn't want to have the leaves and I just wanted the flowers, I can go through and do that. I did flowers and berries on here, so I would, just skip around the berries and not use them. But again, layer 3 is your kind of background piece where you get the lighter color, and then layer 4 is your details piece where you'll go in with a darker color. I'm going to use all 4 today, but I did want to share that you can just use the flowers separately. You don't have to use them in unison with the leaves. So let's talk the actual tool and what I'm going to use it for. Now, the beauty of this tool is that it is like an A4 size, so it gives you a pretty large surface area to work with. But what I love about it is that you can work this direction, but I actually prefer when I'm doing stencils to work this direction. I don't know, it's just something about the way I like to see something. I'm going to take the stamp platform off because I'm not going to be using that until a little bit later. And I'm going to take my adapter off because I'm not using that on my project today, but I am going to be using this on another stencil and stamp tool vlog that I am working on. So I will be showing you how to use that one on the next video, so be on the lookout for that. Now, I love working on our smooth cardstock because it gives me a really nice surface area for me to capture color. And I'm going to be using some brighter tones today because this is a it's kind of a stencil where I saw the versatility of it because I was designing it, but that's not necessarily what other people are going to see. So I'm going to do like kind of an everyday version, and then I'm going to show you a holiday version I've started working on and kind of walk you through what the differences are, so to speak. So what I'm going to do is start with my layer 1. Now I like using my scraps to create these because these are 6x6 stencils, but you can trim down the pattern afterwards. So I'll usually just make sure that my paper is completely covered, and then I'll line up my 2 holes here with the 2 peg holes. And my sticky grid sheet is what's going to hold my paper in place. It's also going to be holding it up here as well. So I'm going to push that in so that it doesn't move around. If you do want a little bit of extra secureness when you're going, if you're someone who doesn't go in very lightly handed with your inks and of that nature, you can also put a little bit of maker's tape in the corner just to hold down the corners. You don't need to, but it's an option if you're someone like me who's very kind of rough with their stencils sometimes. But I'm going to start with a light green, although I'm not really sure which green I want to use yet. So I'm actually going to start with the flower layers. And this is the beauty, is I can do my flowers first and then come back and do my leaves because I designed the stencil this way. Because sometimes you may want to change your leaf color depending on what color palette you go with for your flowers. So I'm going to start with my flowers. And because I already knew that it was lined up with my first layer, I don't need to move the paper around because I know it'll line up perfectly for that precision every time because of these pegs. Another great feature of this tool. So I'm going to start with some shaded lilac in Distress Ink. I'm going to go with that lighter tone shade of purple, and I'm using my multi-tool here with our blending tool head, and I'm just going to go in and pull that ink across. Okay, so got my first layer down, and I'm going to peel that up, and you can see that that floral is a really nice light toned purple. And now I'm going to go in with a darker purple, and I'm going to go in with stencil 4, which is the details of that flower. So because I'm going up, I'm going to go to a darker tone, and this particular stencil only has 2 layers, so I'm just picking like 2 tones that I like together, and I think I'm going to do Wilted Violet next because I do like the brightness of it. Okay, so there's our details layer for the florals, and you can see that I have gone back in and you get those really nice kind of beautiful details on that darker layer. Now because now I have my colors down, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go more green or more aqua for my leaves. I've got both options here. And I think I'm leaning more towards like a really bright aqua tone. So now I'm going to go in with my layer 1 stencil, which is the background for the leaves. And I'm going to go in with a light color for the aqua. And I'm using Evergreen Bough for this. And then I'm going to use a bright tone aqua on top. Oh, that's so pretty. I love purples and aquas together. They make the prettiest cards. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with layer 2, and this is going to be my details layer for my leaves. So now I'm going to go to a darker tone because I'm moving up in the design. So the bottom of the design, light colors, and then as you work your way up through the design, you go to darker colors. go. And there you have your beautiful design. And while I love these tones, I feel like the card needs just a little something extra. So I'm actually gonna take one of the layers we already did, and I'm gonna put it back on before I take this paper off. And I'm gonna add some of our Crystal Glaze through it, which is this really nice kind of translucent medium that has, just like it says, crystal, so it has like a very shimmery glitter look to it, we'll say. So I don't want it over the entire thing, so I think I'm actually just gonna do the detailed layer of the flowers, and I'm just gonna quickly clean off my stencil so that it doesn't mix into my medium. Okay, so I'm gonna put this is layer 4, I'm gonna put this back on so that I'm only really getting that layer. And because I don't want this medium to get on my sticky grid sheet, I am gonna mask off this bottom area just to be safe. I'm just gonna put a little bit of maker's tape there just so that I have a little bit more room to play with. So this is the Crystal Glaze, and this is such a beautiful way to add some pretty effects to your projects. But you can see it's a translucent kind of glaze paste, and I just like adding it on top of projects. I'm using my palette knife from my Craft Tool Effects set, and I'm just going to apply some of this to the very back of the palette knife, I should say, and then I'm just going to pull this across. Now you are going to want to immediately, when you're done applying this glaze, you're going to want to immediately clean off your stencil. You don't want this to dry on there. It just leaves behind like a texture that you may not want. I've been able to get it off after it's dried as well, but it's just kind of a pain to clean off if you don't clean it while it's still a little bit wet and tacky. So highly recommend, if you're going to use any kind of medium like this with stencils, that you have a wet wipe nearby or a bucket of water that you can clean them off with really quickly. They are easy to clean off. I tend to just throw mine in the sink with warm water and a little bit of soap and give them a nice little gentle scrub, and then they're good to go. So there is that. I'm going to wipe the excess off and put it back into the jar. And I'm just going to clean this stencil off real quick so it doesn't get ruined. Clean off my palette knife too. You can see you have a beautiful kind of shimmery effect. Hoping it, there we go, catch it in the light so you can see. You can let that air dry, which I'm going to do, and we'll be back in just a second, or you can actually take like a heat tool to this and help it dry faster. Okay, so I have trimmed down around the pattern. I'm doing like a standard A2 card size, so this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 once it's folded, but I trimmed this down 1/4 inch around the outside perimeter. So I've cut this down, I've adhered it to a card base. I'm using our lovely muted purple cardstock, and now I want to just kind of finish it up. I have a pack. I don't really want to do too much on top of this. That's beautiful in and of itself. I just want to kind of create one focal point and have a really nice pretty card very quickly. So I've die cut out of a lighter purple cardstock that I thought would look nice, and I've added a little bit of the ink that we used earlier onto the outside edges of this. And then this is the heart frame die from our Essentials dies. So I'm just going to peel off, I put some foam tape on there, I'm going to peel the backing off of that, and I'm going to add that to the center of this card just to give it a nice kind of focal point that is solid and won't detract from the background. And I'm just going to center it so I can see as much of the pattern as possible. And then I've just die cut a simple sentiment from our white cardstock. You can use an adhesive sheet to make it a sticker on the back. I'm just going to pop a little bit of our express glue here onto the back of it. I've gotten pretty good over the years at adding glue onto the back of intricate dies when I don't have an adhesive sheet nearby. So I'm just going to add that on, and then we'll center and glue that onto the heart. Push it down. And voila, quick and easy cards. Here's another variation of it in a lighter pattern, so you can see just how you change the colors. You get a very different kind of look. This one I did on a dark gray cardstock. I used more of blue tone kind of inks, and then instead of doing the same color for the berries all the way around, I chose to just in those areas put a little bit of orange. So you can do the same kind of card, and you can do it in multiple different color patterns. Save your little strips. You can always use those for other projects. I love taking scraps and repurposing them for other projects. Something else I wanted to show you before I move on to how you can do a holiday version of it is I was playing around with the colors. So I did like a bright pink tone version. I did oranges. I did yellows. I did blues. You can see what a beautiful pattern it is, no matter what colorway you're using. And what I think is really fun about this is that you could take something like a card that's very simple like this, and as a gift, create like a pack of 10 of these cards to gift to somebody with different sentiments so that they can give those out as a gift later on. That's something that I think is really a nice gift for someone who likes to handwrite their cards, who loves to create those personal touches for people when they're having a good day, a bad day, or they want to send their congrats or their sympathy. Give them just a basic card and change out the sentiments so that they can then use that background for any occasion. Now, I really envisioned this initially being a kind of like a spring summer die, but I also, as I started to look at it, was kind of looking at it going, well, it's kind of an abstract poinsettia as well, in my eyes anyway. And so I wanted to do a version of it that was more holiday focused. So I have got my red card base right here. I've die cut some of the festive foliage right here from chapter 3, which is a die from Just Slack. And I've inked them. I've added a little bit of white gel pen on there. I've got a nice little strip that they're going to center on. I've got a sentiment that I'm going to add on. And then I went and did a background where I did pink and red tones with like traditional kind of green tones for the holidays. And then I went back in and did that kind of crystal glaze across one portion or one layer, we will. And now I can create a Christmas card out of it. So let's put this one together quickly. You're just going to, you can add foam tape, glue, whatever your preference is for gluing paper to paper. I kind of depends on the project, but this one I'm just going to use our permanent adhesive roller and adhere that down to my card front. Then I want the next layer to sit off and away from the background so that it creates a little bit of like a field of depth. So for that, I am going to be using our foam tape. And I'm gonna kind of move this down a little bit further so again I can see the majority of the pattern. And I actually meant to stamp the sentiment before I did that, so meant to do that while that was flat. These are the things that happen when you're filming live. So I'm just gonna lay that on here and I'll go ahead and do that now because it should still work just fine. So this says, may your days be merry and bright. We have 2 new festive sentiment sets that have come out with chapter 3 that are perfect for the holidays. So I've lined that up, I've got my stencil and stamp tool platform out again, and I've just added my sentiment to the stamp platform portion, the stamping plate I should say, and I'm just gonna go in. I always do like a light kind of press on the first one just to make sure I've got it lined up perfectly, and then I'll go back in because I did this in the wrong order. I'm gonna have to push in a little bit harder than I would if I had done it on a flat surface instead of with the foam tape underneath, but just add a little bit more ink. Push in hard right there just to get that. There we go. So got my sentiment. May your days be merry and bright. Put this back off to the side. And now I'm gonna add on my poinsettia and my leaves and my green foliage berries. So I like to lay out my foliage first. So I'm gonna do that just to kind of, before I glue anything down, I like to make sure everything kind of has a purposeful place and fits nicely, and then I go in and glue things. So probably angle that. There we go. I think that's nice. Now I'm not going to actually glue all these down because I'm going to add foam tape to the back of this, and the foam tape will actually hold all those elements in place. And then if you want, you can always go back in and add like a little bit of glue to tack down certain leaves. But if you place this properly, it'll actually hold all of those leaves in place without you having to put a ton of glue down. And then you can kind of pull things up, play around, make it a little bit more dimensional. And then you have a version of it that is perfect for the holidays. So whether you're going from everyday to holiday, all you have to do is just change out the colors and you've got a whole new version you can do. I can see this being used for Thanksgiving just by using browns and oranges and yellows, deep olive colors. So you really can have fun with it, and that makes me very excited for you to all have it in your hands now. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little tutorial today using our newest layered stencil, Flower Patch. And be sure to look out, we have some additional ones coming out that I'm going to do in a video soon. So keep an eye out for that on our socials. And whether you're creating for everyday or holiday or all the seasons in between, just remember that layered stencils really are a versatile way to use for your scrapbooks, your cards, any kind of home decor pieces. And if you have any questions about any of the products I used today, please just let us know in the comment section below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you do happen to be using the Flower Patch, be sure to tag us on our social media channels and use the hashtag #MySizzixStory so we can find your makes and share them with everyone else. Until next time, happy crafting and take care of each other.